This week on Vaticano, we follow the pilgrimage of the Olympic Cross as it arrives on the road to the Winter Olympics in Milan. Then we take you inside the story of how the Vatican became a sovereign state. On the World Day of the Sick, meet Marusha and her family and see how their faith is helping them face cancer with courage and hope. And we close with the candlelit Candlemas procession for the Feast of the Presentation of the Lord. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. Since the London 2012 Games, the Olympic and Paralympic Cross has accompanied athletes at major international events, from the 2013 World Youth Day and the 2014 FIFA World Cup to the 2016 Olympic and Paralympic Games in Rio. It was also present at World Youth Day in 2023 and the Paris 2024 Olympics. This year, the Vatican sent the cross to Milan, where the Winter Games will take place. Many had anticipated the arrival of the cross. Teams of local young athletes accompanied the procession as it entered the Basilica of San Babila.
We celebrate all the things that enhance human lives, and sport is one of those things. I mean, the eyes of the world are going to be focused on Milan and Cortina, spectacular, the mountains, the snow, the excellence of the artists. But in the midst of all that, we want to celebrate the spirit, the human spirit, which expresses it in so many ways, including in forms of faith. So what we're trying to do is to try and invite people during this time, when they're here for sport, to think about the things that give purpose and meaning in life.
In Milan, tourists and athletes are already filling the streets ahead of this international event. The Olympic Village has opened its doors to participants, and the local church has done the same.
Ci sono cappellani dedicati proprio ad accompagnare.
There are chaplains specifically dedicated to accompanying and staying close to the athletes, as well as to all the staff involved in the preparation, training, and the running of competitions. We specifically chose the Basilica of San Babila, right in the heart of Milan, a place that is very easy to find and highly accessible, so that Olympic Village staff, athletes, tourists, and everyone visiting over these days can also have a place to pray.
Di trovare anche un luogo per pregare.
Celebrating Mass, the Archbishop of Milan announced that Pope Leo had sent a message on the occasion of the arrival of the Athlete's Cross. In it, Pope Leo expressed his hope that healthy competition will contribute to building bridges between cultures and peoples and promote welcoming, solidarity, and peace.
Papa Leone ha dimostrato con queste poche parole.
Pope Leo has shown, with these few words, a great interest in this event. This demonstrates that the Holy See pays attention to the Milano Cortina Games, but more broadly, that there is a tradition of integrating ecclesial sensitivity with the practice of sport.
Ecclesiale e la pratica sportiva.
The cross is made of wood from 15 countries, including China, Russia, Australia, the Holy Land, Brazil, and Argentina, as a symbol of unity, a meaningful detail during the Olympic truce.
The Olympic truce is an old idea that the people were able to set aside all their differences for the sake of enabling artists or athletes to get to the Games. And it's an important celebration, and in our world that is marked by so much violence, by so much hatred, to celebrate the importance of peace is so close to something that intuitively Pope Leo has from the beginning talked about, the importance of peace.
For the next weeks, the Basilica of San Babila will have its doors open to Olympic athletes and spectators who wish to visit during the season. Do you know how the Vatican State was born? Stay with us to find out. A secretive deal. A historic compromise. February the 11th, 1929, marked a key moment in the modern history of the Church. On that day, with the signing of the Lateran Treaty, an agreement between the Holy See and Italy, the Vatican City State was officially established.
Muy al principio de los primeros siglos hubo un territorio, casi una franja.
From very early on in the first centuries, there existed a territory, almost a strip across the middle of Italy, from one side to the other, from one part of the Mediterranean to the other, which were called the Papal States. This lasted until, with the unification of Italy, the Papal States were lost, and Rome was lost in 1870. And then in 1929, an agreement was reached to restore to the Pope a small measure of temporal sovereignty by creating a small state.
Al Papa un poquitín de soberanía temporal, inventarse un pequeño estado.
The smallest sovereign state in the world is situated in the heart of Rome, surrounded by a 9-meter-high boundary wall, with a territory of just 44 hectares, or 109 acres.
Today, that territory serves to guarantee the Pope's independence. The Pope can look out from the window of his study in the Apostolic Palace and speak freely, without being subject to the laws of any other state. It is a guarantee of freedom and independence.
Una buona domenica!
Vatican City is deeply intertwined with another entity, the Holy See. This spiritual and diplomatic authority governs the Church worldwide, while Vatican City State provides the sovereign territorial base. It is tiny in size, but powerful in symbolic, cultural, and political influence. It's a unique, elective, absolute monarchy with its own flag, anthem, and Latin as its official language. It's governed by the Pope, who holds total legislative, executive, and judicial power. One of its most distinctive features is Vatican citizenship, which is not acquired by birth. It is granted exclusively to those who serve the Holy See, such as cardinals, diplomats, and members of the Vatican security services. Fewer than 400 people live within the Vatican walls, and only a handful of them hold a Vatican passport.
People who hold that passport have it only because of the role they perform, so their citizenship is temporary. There are no lifelong citizens. It is functional. Both the territory and the citizenship exist to serve the objectives of the papacy.
Despite its microscopic territory, Vatican City possesses all the essential elements of a state, including its own legal system and courts of law.
Ha habido gente que lo han juzgado, esos tribunales funcionan.
There have been people who have been tried, those courts do function, and there have been people judged, for example, for traffic-related offences or for leaking information, that is, for violating secrecy, breaching confidentiality of reserved information. In those cases, the court might say, you get 5 years or 2 years in prison. In the Vatican, there is a prison. There's one nearby, in a building where the Gendarmeria is located.
En el Vaticano hay una cárcel.
Within its borders, Vatican City has a post office, a railway station, a radio, a printing press, and a pharmacy. It issues its own stamps and has its own currency, tied to the euro, which requires compliance not only with Italy, but also with European Union regulations. Rome has been the capital of the Papal States for centuries, and there are still plenty of churches, basilicas, universities, and diplomatic representations, so-called extraterritorial entities, that belong to the Vatican, even though they're on Italian soil.
Italia accedió muy generosamente, porque Italia es muy generosa.
So Italy very generously allowed some places and buildings in Rome to remain the property of the Holy See and extraterritorial. They're like embassies. For example, the Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore, the Lateran, the Chancery, the San Callisto area, a building next to Santa Maria in Trastevere, in the Trastevere neighborhood.
al lado de Santa María en Trastevere, en la zona del Trastevere.
A significant sign of the Holy See's presence in the world are the 184 apostolic nunciatures, which function like embassies in the secular sense. Each is headed by a nuncio, the Pope's highest permanent representative abroad.
Auf der einen Seite ist wie alle Botschafter
On the one hand, like all ambassadors, he is someone who seeks to help shape and maintain contact with the government, with government members, institutions, politics, and culture. On the other hand, which is just as important, he is also the counterpart, the point of contact, for the bishops in the country.
The Lateran Pacts, signed on February the 11th, 97 years ago, secured the Pope's and the Church's autonomy and its role in the world, providing a foundation for the Vatican's cultural, diplomatic, and religious influence today and in the future.
Grazie a tutti voi.
Established in 1992, the World Day of the Sick is celebrated every year on the feast day of Our Lady of Lourdes, the 11th of February. St. John Paul II instituted this day just 1 year after his diagnosis with Parkinson's disease. Since then, the World Day of the Sick serves to spread awareness and have a day dedicated to prayer and offering of suffering for the good of the Church and humanity. However, for many, the reality of illness and struggle is not confined to one single day. For 10-year-old Marusha Schlodzak, the past 8 years of her life have been a complex and tiring routine of hospital visits and unexpected diagnoses.
Marysia was 2 years old at the time. She started to become less active, showed that her throat hurt and began vomiting. At first, we only observed her, then we went to a doctor, to a gastroenterologist. We tried to treat it as reflux, but the medications were not effective. So, our doctor suggested that we should do more thorough tests in the hospital. Maybe there they would find out what was going on and what the problem was. With a referral straight from the clinic, we went to the hospital. Another gastroenterologist thought that such symptoms, vomiting, nausea and weakness, might have a neurological cause. Therefore, she immediately managed to arrange tests, a CT scan of the brain, and scheduled an MRI for the following day. Already during that first examination, it turned out that there was a tumour in Marusha's head.
The next course of action led Marusha to the operating room to have the tumor removed. Hospitals quickly became a regular part of her family's life.
We were at the hospital in Lublin, where after the surgery, a neurosurgical intervention, Marusha was transferred from surgery to oncology, and in oncology, she simply started chemotherapy. At the hospital, there was also an infection of the cerebrospinal fluid.
Out of fear for their daughter's life, her parents, Piotr and Agata, looked for various options outside of Lublin, so that Marusha would have the best possible conditions to receive treatment and recover. They also considered going abroad, and then they were offered a place for their daughter at the Vatican's hospital, Bambin Gesù, in Rome.
Unfortunately, the worst part was the infection, which delayed the entire treatment by several months as it kept recurring. She also had a stem cell transplant. The cells were harvested, followed by intense chemotherapy, and she came through. Then we started neuro rehabilitation. After several months of lying down constantly due to brain hypoxia, Marusha had to relearn how to walk and basically start over.
In 2025, Marusha was diagnosed with osteosarcoma, a cancer that affected her entire femur bone. There was no other choice but to amputate her right leg.
Podoba mi się mój Mój tata się podoba, jak mnie przytula. Jak jadę z tatą do szpitala, to lekarze mi robią badania. Moją nóżkę leczą, sprawdzają, co tam się dzieje u mojej nóżce. Czasami ćwiczymy na siłowni. Tak jak tata. Tak jak tata.
At the core of their hardship, the Schlodzak family have said that it's only through the strength of God and their Catholic faith that they've been able to get through what have been the most difficult years of their lives.
Myślę, że tutaj nasza...
I think that here, our faith, our formation, also pointed to the fact that human life is the highest good. It's simply another task. Just another task for an ordinary Catholic Christian who knows that human life is the most important, that every person has undeniable dignity, and that it's worth fighting for each one. There is no life that is meaningless.
I believe that God can take every misfortune, every suffering, and every difficult situation and bring good out of it. Sometimes a situation may seem, from a human point of view, difficult, impossible, or unfair, but maybe it is necessary to awaken something in someone, to make a commitment, or to change something in their life.
Jestem w Andrzeju na Ślące. Dalej mamy latę. Lubię słyszeć melodię. Lubię przytulasy z wami.
The Schlodzak family is a living example of the courage faith can give when life seems to be falling apart. The World Day of the Sick reminds us that suffering is not only temporary, but can also have meaning, seen through the life of Jesus, who came to show us that even pain can serve a purpose. Our struggles can be offered up, and hope can always be found. After the break, join us inside St. Peter's Basilica to light a candle in celebration of the presentation of the Lord. Thousands of small flames flicker in the air, dancing beneath the vaulted ceilings of St. Peter's Basilica. One of the most beautiful liturgical ceremonies of the year is being celebrated, a ritual rich in memory and symbolism. It's the feast of the presentation of the Lord, known to the faithful as Candlemas. Since the 6th century, on February the 2nd, the Church has commemorated this event described in the Gospel of Luke. 40 days after Jesus' birth, Mary and Joseph bring him to the temple in Jerusalem to present him to God, as prescribed by Jewish law. There, the elderly Simeon recognizes the infant as a light for revelation to the nations.
L'attesa del popolo di Israele.
This moment represents the climax of a long history of salvation that stretches from the Garden of Eden to the courtyards of the temple.
Che si snoda dal giardino dell'Eden ai cortili del Tempio. Una storia segnata dal
A history marked by light and shadow, failure and renewal, yet always driven by a single vital desire, to restore full communion between the Creator and His creatures.
Ristabilire la piena comunione della creatura con il suo creatore.
Countless members of religious orders have gathered in St. Peter's Basilica to pray together with Pope Leo. They celebrate the World Day of Consecrated Life, established by Pope John Paul II in 1997. He wished, through this observance, to honor religious men and women who dedicate their lives to Christ. Through their total belonging to the Lord, they become a powerful sign of God's presence in the world, a light and witnesses of Christ for humanity.
I am 57 years old, and I have spent 30 years in religious life, so that is already quite a long time. And I must say that this time has passed like a single day. Since the moment I set out on this path of life, the path of the evangelical counsels of chastity, poverty, and obedience, it is truly a beautiful life, a beautiful vocation. And throughout all of these 30 years, I have never had any doubts. I am truly happy. Jesus Christ is everything.
Jezus Chrystus, to jest wszystko.
Candlemas has been associated with members of religious orders since the Middle Ages, when the church and confraternities began to link the light of Christ to the consecrated life, with the blessing of candles and the renewal of religious service. For one Roman confraternity, the feast goes beyond the liturgical observance, and its celebration is deeply rooted in the confraternity's own history, one born of popular devotion and illuminated by the symbolism of light and hope. Today, in the Church of Santa Maria dell'Orto in the Roman district of Trastevere, the local confraternity keeps the tradition of Candlemas alive.
On the first suitable Sunday, this ceremony is held. A solemn mass with choirs, the organ, an internal procession, and so on. At the end, these blessed candles are given to representatives of all the institutions that work along the Tiber.
Founded in Rome in the 16th century in the Trastevere district, the Archconfraternity of Santa Maria dell'Orto experiences the Feast of Candlemas as one of the most intense moments of its spiritual life. Its origins are closely tied to the working people of the Eternal City, market gardeners, winemakers, fruit merchants, all connected to the land and the Tiber River.
Fin dal 1500 gli equipaggi che sbarcavano.
Since the 1500s, crews disembarking at the port of Ripa Grande, located just across from the street, from what is now about 50 meters away and no longer exists, would come here on Candlemas to receive a blessed candle. They believed it would protect them in times of danger, such as storms or shipwrecks, and serve as a good omen. This took place on Candlemas, 40 days after Christmas, because the feast marked a turning point, the end of winter's darkness and the coming of the light of spring.
La luce della primavera.
The Feast of Consecrated Persons is also an occasion to commemorate those religious who have given their life defending the faith, usually in dangerous regions in the world. According to information collected by the Fides news agency, the official news agency of the Vatican dedicated to missionary activity, founded 100 years ago, 17 Catholic missionaries were killed worldwide in 2025, most of them members of religious orders. But despite the danger, they do not lose heart and would never give up their mission, as they draw their strength from God.
What matters is learning to try to follow in the footsteps of the Lord Jesus. Carrying the cross with Jesus is filled with peace and joy, even when something is difficult. It gives a sense of security, His presence, the certainty that sooner or later everything will turn out well, that Jesus helps, and that this is something you truly feel.
Candlemas is a special moment of prayer for them. It stands at the crossroads of Christmas joy and the approaching shadow of the Passion, reminding believers that light shines brightest in the midst of darkness.